Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Keith Fisher, and I'm today with my co-host Jean-Luc Touré. How are you, Jean?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Thank you. We are both from the SAP User Experience Product Management team, and today we have a great session around the SAP Business Application Studio, featuring Nir Cole, Yuval Anafi, and Karen Rotberg. Welcome to all of you, and I'll turn it over to Jean-Luc for our rules of engagement.
Hello, everybody. So our rules for engagements are actually very simple. This Fiori-side chat is not a sales session. We are not trying to sell you anything. We are not collecting your information. We know that we are part of a large ecosystem and we have lots of technologies around us and many other people helping. But we ask you to refrain from promoting third-party services or tools. At the bottom of the Zoom window, you will see a chat button. As a warm-up exercise, could you please go ahead and click on it to pop up the chat window and introduce yourself, as we like to know who you are. There is also a Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window. You can trigger and ask questions. This meeting is recorded and will be made available in the Fiori-side chat wiki. Without further ado, let me turn it over to our experts. Could you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi there. My name is Nir Cole. I'm 16 years with SAP, and I'm leading the team in SAP Cloud Platform dealing with development experience, managing tools like SAP Web ID, the partnership with Mendix, and with the Business Application Studio, our new cloud development environment that we'll be deep diving in today.
I'm Yuval Anafi, also 16 years in SAP, product owner for App Studio and also SAP Web IDE, mainly focusing on enabling the different development scenarios in Business Application Studio.
Hi, my name is Karen Rotberg, and I'm also about 16 years in SAP. I'm leading the product management team for the Business Application Studio and Web IDE, and happy to be here today.
Well, thank you so much for all of you joining us. I'm actually throwing up a poll question here that everybody can take a look at and answer if you have an opportunity. But as we leave this poll question up, let me go ahead and turn it over to Nir. So Nir, tell us a little bit about the SAP Business Application Studio. You know, what was the motivation to start this project, and what's the value proposition?
Web ID is a product with us for about 7 years. Great product, and we're getting a lot of this question about what is the motivation to actually go and develop this new development environment and release it for customers. So I'll start with the motivation and then we'll touch about the value proposition, although they touch each other, of course. First of all, when we move from the Neo Cloud Platform into the multi-cloud and taking the cloud platform into the AWS, Azure, Ali Cloud, private cloud, and so on, we needed to actually go and reevaluate our entire architecture and make it more transferable, being able to offer it everywhere, anytime, and actually make it more modern and robust. On top of that, on the second layer, I would say that we wanted to provide developers virtual machines in the cloud that give them experience like they're developing on a local machine. In Web IDE, where the limit on how we can do that. Now in Business Application Studio, our ability to actually create development environments that are isolated for the developers so they can install tools, manage their files and so on, it's much more powerful. On top of that, we added an open source IDE, Eclipse TIA, which is an open source and embracing the VS Code user experience. And with that, we actually provide a much better experience, a more modern development environment, much more powerful and flexible. And this comes with a much extensive community of plugins and extensions that enables to bring innovation, content into the environment much easier and then offer much more value to the developers. So if we take all of this, okay, and we look at the value proposition, basically, we offer a much more modern development environment that is tailored for the development of business application for the intelligent enterprise. And that means that we can support many more development scenarios than what we could with WebID. Of course, our focus at the beginning is to cover the same scenarios, but then add additional scenarios. So first of all, okay, we are providing a turnkey solution. Turnkey solution, it means that we created different type of virtual machine. It's a Kubernetes pod, that each one of them is tailored for specific SAP development scenario. So if you're talking about Fiori elements, there's a dev space that's pre-configured, predefined with everything that you need in order to run efficiently an end-to-end Fiori project. If you are looking for a full stack development using the cloud application model, and or if you want to develop a function as a service, there's a dev space that's tailored for that, and you have much more content and capabilities there that might not be available in the Fiori one. The same we'll have for the mobile development, and we're adding more and more of these virtual machines that are tailored for this experience. For each one of them, we're actually covering, we provide simplified development, and we're covering the end-to-end process from the project creation to the development, connectivity to the SAP system, debugging, testing, and deployment. And we provide ultimate productivity tools. So things like command line, like Wizard, standard industry standards like LSPs and so on are now part of the product, and also enable us to bring innovation, bring content from the community much easier into the product. So I think that sounds right.
Wow, that's fantastic. So, so obviously the first comparison is always going to be about, how is this different than WebIDE? And so you covered the fact that you are starting with a set of, common use cases to start, but what's going to be different in the longer term?
So yeah, I'll start by sharing a little bit about the big picture. So like Nir mentioned, Business Application Studio is browser-based. And as you can see, at the heart of the Business Application Studio are the dev spaces, which Nir mentioned. You can see here that each dev space consists of a file system. And this is where we recommend to connect it to the Git source code repository. And here's one of the major differences. You see the development environment here. So as Nir mentioned, this is based also on an open source called Eclipse, which is from an experience perspective, similar to VS Code. So it embraces the VS Code experience, and also provides a very powerful IDE for coding. It includes debuggers, command line, command palette, and in the dev space itself, so for example, in this Fiori Dev Space, you can see here that we have extensions that are relevant for the Fiori scenario. So for example, here you can see SAP UI5 that exists in the dev space, so that you have the UI5 libraries in various versions so that you can run the application inside the dev space with the relevant version of the UI5. You have the tools for UI5 development and Fiori development, like the layout editor, which is a graphical editor. And you have the LSP, the language services for developing with UI5, including code completion and IntelliSense and so on. And in addition to that, you can add also additional extensions like workflow extensions and additional extensions that SAP provides out of the box that you'll be able to see in the demo that Yuval will do later on, and also additional custom extensions. So that provides you a lot more freedom and a lot more control over your environment. And in addition to that, so while you're developing, you can consume services coming from SAP Cloud Platform, coming from anywhere on the internet, in the cloud or on premise. And also you can then test the application locally inside your dev space and build it and deploy it to the Cloud Foundry environment or to the on-premise environment. And just another step deeper into this topic of the dev space is because this is one of the major differences. You can see, for example, the Fiori Dev Space on top. So the Fiori Dev Space comes with the IDE, like I mentioned, with the language services for UI5, JavaScript, XML, the layout editor, and there's various templates also suited for developing applications for on-prem, for cloud. And then in the environment itself, we have the support for various UI5 versions to test mock data, also the ability to build the application and deploy it to various platforms. And each one of these dev spaces includes the IDE with different language services and different runtimes for the environment, so to suit that scenario. And in the future, what we plan to offer is also the ability to share this dev space. So you can already customize it for your needs, but also in the future, share it with additional developers, for example, in your team, if you'd like to have the same environment. A little bit more about the differences. So just to show kind of a table that shows the differences. So the Business Application Studio is hosted on the Cloud Foundry environment. And it supports various deployment targets like deploying to Cloud Foundry or on-premise, and also will support the ability to deploy to the ABAP environment in the cloud. And the major difference from Web IDE is the dev spaces themselves. So these environments that we mentioned that are like virtual machines in the cloud, that provide you a lot more control, where you can decide what exists in your environment. So this is one of the major differences. Then the experience is also a difference. So Web IDE is an experience that is an SAP experience that we've defined, which is a browser-based experience. And with Business Application Studio, although it's available through the browser, you get a desktop-like experience with the fact that you can test locally, and you can also use the terminal and additional tools to develop the application. From a persona perspective, the Business Application Studio supports various developer personas, like the pro coder, what we call a professional developer, who likes to use command line tools, code editor, and also the developers who like to develop cloud and full stack applications with a lot of superior code editors. It also supports web and mobile development, and also, the experience for the developers can be different per persona. So the dev space concept allows us to provide a different experience for the different personas. From a standard perspective, the Business Application Studio uses various open source and leading standards, which also allows us to provide additional tools and technologies that exist in the market and easily integrate them into Business Application Studio. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, and maybe if we look at this parity or this comparison between SAP Business Application Studio and Web IDE, are you looking for, or is there already a feature parity, or is that a target? Can you tell us more about this? I mean, there is a comparison here, but if we look at it, I mean, is there any, let's say, feature parity, or is that a target?
So what we're looking at is, first of all, scenario parity, which means each one of the scenarios that we could do in Web IDE, we can do the same in Business Application Studio. The reason why we're not saying feature parity, because of the adoption of open source and standards and so on, there's a different experience and flow in some of the use cases, and it's not going to be the same button or same feature in everywhere, but a much better and improved experience. But the overall direction is to make sure that any development artifact that you could manage or create in Web IDE, you could do the same in Business Application Studio. The modularity here allows us to expand and bring much more innovation in it, like third-party tools and capabilities that we couldn't do in Web IDE, and therefore, moving forward, the Business Application Studio will become much more versatile with additional components, additional capabilities, additional scenario that will be introduced as dev spaces, and so on. So it will cover Web IDE plus.
Maybe I can also add to that. There's various options in Business Application Studio. So for example, if you would like to use Git, or if you would like to generate an application, you can do it in various ways. So you can do it through terminal access through the command line. You can do it through a command palette, which is an easier way to run the command. Instead of typing it, you can just choose the command and run it, or you could use UI. So for example, for Git, there's a Git pane that you can use. And also for the wizard, there's UI to run a wizard and generate an application. So there's various options that you have to suit your preference and what you're used to. And this is one of the experience aspects that we have enabled in Business Application Studio. So in WebID, most of the capabilities were a lot more UI. We did not have the option to offer command line. So the Git capabilities were through a Git pane. And also the wizard. So I think this is also one of the benefits that you get.
So if I understand correctly, you are not looking for feature parity, but scenario parity between WebID and SAP Application Studio. And today, what is the parity? I mean, what is the corresponding scenario that you do support in SAP Business Application Studio? Do you have an idea?
So today, we already have almost full coverage to all the scenario. Okay, wow. So Fiori elements, workflow, mobile, full stack development with cloud application programming, function as a service that it's addition, and so on. So all of them exist. The only scenario that's currently not available is HANA development. So HANA specific tool like CalcView, FlowGraph, and so on. Those are currently under development and will be hopefully released later this year.
Okay.
So a common question, I guess, to everybody in the audience is, how does this make my workflow faster, right? And I'm wondering, from a Fiori development perspective, if there's things that you can, show or demonstrate, that kind of speed to delivery that everybody is looking for.
Yeah, so I will take that. So first of all, yes, I prepared a demo, so I will do it in a second. But maybe as Nir talked about, and also Karen, so we have basically re-enabled the Fiori development scenarios with Business Application Studio. And the most important change is basing on standards. So everything we do on Business Application Studio is based on standard and enables developers to use the standard development tools. And on top, we are offering, of course, the productivity tools that developers are looking for, and helps developer to do things faster, of course. Examples for that are, for example, the template. When you create a new project from template, we chose the Yeoman as a standard for creating the application scaffolding. We are using the UI5 Evo tools as a basis for running applications, building applications for UI5, which is, of course, SAP best practices. We have the terminal access, which enables you to run any missing command which is not available in the UI, and you have the capabilities and know-hows on how to extend the development flow. We implemented the LSP for UI5, which is the standard way of supporting new languages across the different standard IDEs. So now it's out of the box supported with the Business Application Studio. And also we're offering the productivity tools that helps you to run faster. The first one is the run configuration tool, which is like a one-stop shop to run any application in Business Application Studio. You have the run button, and you can use it, I will show it on the demo, to run basically any application, Fiori, mobile, workflow, whatever it would be. Behind the scenes, we're doing the complex activities of hooking between the different technologies and make it run in a click of a button. Of course, the mock server is here, deployment tools for Fiori, the service catalog, which we now call the Consume SAP Services tool, helps you to connect easily to SAP systems and consume data from there. And also Cloud Foundry tools that helps you to consume Cloud Foundry services and also later on deploy the application to Cloud Foundry. So maybe I can start now with the demo. This is Business Application Studio Dev Space Manager. So when you log in to Business Application Studio, you would see this screen empty for the first time. And here you basically create your first development environment according to your scenario need. Right now, I have two dev spaces I created in advance. One for Fiori development and the other one for, I called it for integration activities. If I would click here on the Create Dev Space button, you'll be able to see the offered predefined dev spaces according to the different scenarios offered by Business Application Studio. And when you click on each one of them, you can see the content of the dev space, what we are packaging together with the dev space, the different tools. So on Fiori, you can see the freestyle tools, MTA tools for Cloud Foundry development, Fiori Elements tools, and additional UI5 templates and freestyle templates. And on the right hand, you can also see additional extensions coming from SAP, like the workflow tools that you can add to your workspace to extend your development according to your needs. But let's just start with the Fiori development demo. So when I click on the dev space link, I would just now open the IDE itself. So this is the TIA IDE. On the left side, you can see the file explorer. So these are the basically the files that are currently on my workspace. On the downside, you can see the terminal, and here you can basically execute any commands according to your available tools installed on your workspace. And on the left side here, you can see the different productivity tools that are coming out of the box with the IDE, which are specific for Fiori development. So let's start with creating a new project. And of course, we will start here with the wizard. So this is the application, new application wizard that we also had in Web IDE. It is running on top of the Yeoman templates, as I mentioned earlier, and just providing a graphical interface for your convenience. On this Fiori dev space, you can see that I have a different set of templates. One of them is for freestyle development. And on the right hand is templates for Fiori elements. So let's start with selecting the freestyle and the Fiori worklist application for the ABAP runtime. We give it a name. Okay. And now I choose the FLP to be a standalone mode application. And I choose from my service catalog systems available. So this is the list of systems configured on my Business Application Studio instance. So I have the ES5 system. So this is the demo system from SAP. And here I select for the specific service. and provide my credentials. Logging in. And now I need to bind my application to the specific service. So I choose the collection and then the identifier. And for the title, I choose the company name. And for the numeric attribute, I choose the business partner ID. And then the company code. And this is it. The application is generated. And what I would like to do now is just, I would like to run the application immediately. So I will switch to the run configuration tool. And here I can add a new configuration to my application to enable you to me to run the application. So I click on the plus button. And then I choose the demo 1 application I just generated. I choose which file I want to run when I click on run. So I choose the index file. I can choose here between different UI5 versions according to my specific landscape. And I give it a name. Okay, here we have it. So, okay, so each one of the run configuration shows the different bindings of the application to the SAP system, and I need to bind it before I can run it. So let's click on this button of bind, and I select the destination that the service runs on. So this is ES5. And now the application is binded, and I can run the application. Okay, so the application is running. I need to give my credentials. Okay, so this is the list of business partners coming from the ES5 backend system. And it's basically running on my developer workspace on a Business Application Studio. I can modify the application by adding a button, basically. Now, open the layout editor that we enabled, the same layout editor from WebID in Business Application Studio. And if I right-click on the object view, I can open the layout editor. I can also open the XML view on the side. And this is a feature that many of WebID customers ask for a long time, to be able to do this side-by-side development. So now we can see the XML view together with the graphical view for the layout editor, and I can drag and drop the button here. And you can see that the button is added here to the XML as well. So this gives the developer a nice flexibility and a view of what is being done behind the scenes when he's working with the layout editor. And so I added the button, and I can just run the application once again. And on the object page where I added the button, you can see that now I have the button. You could also see here on the demo the layout editor running on Business Application Studio, together with the XML editor side by side, which gives the developer nice flexibility during development. So basically, this was my demo for the freestyle development. If you have any questions.
Yuval, I'm really impressed by how quick the code is adjusted with the WYSIWYG. I mean, I see no lag almost.
Yeah, this is a great productivity enhancement that many developers were looking for. This ability to manipulate the Fiori view with the layout editor, and on the same time also be able to see the what's happening behind the scenes, and also gives the developer the opportunity to choose between working with the XML and the layout editor simultaneously. And this is a great productivity enhancement.
Very good.
Also, the turnaround times when you run the application, because it's running on a local workspace of each one of the developers, is really fast, and gives the developer also productivity enhancement, and things are running much more smoother and faster than it used to be.
Yeah, so I see that Karen has started to put some link about how to use SAP Business Application Studio, how to get started, but a quick question about the licensing. Can you tell us more, Karen, about the licensing of SAP Business Application Studio?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have a slide to share on that will help. But just in general, before I start, so it's available on the trial environment. That's where I provided the link. So that would help. So you can try it out. And that's actually what we recommend most customers today. So I think it would be a great idea to try it out. You can go into the trial environment and take a look. And we have a tutorial that explains how to onboard to the Business Application Studio and how to develop a Fiori freestyle application, which can then be deployed to the Cloud Foundry environment. So this is the first thing that we recommend to do. And we're happy to hear your feedback on that. From a licensing perspective, you can purchase the Business Application Studio in consumption-based pricing and subscription through an account executive, and we will soon also have it available in the SAP store.
Karen, what's the policy with regards to customers who have currently Web IDE licenses and want to, start using the Business Application Studio? Does it automatically, is it an upgrade, or is it a separate license for a separate tool?
Yeah, so it's a separate license for a separate tool. Yeah, we have a lot of customers that are, taking it step by step. So we see a lot of customers that are onboarding to Business Application Studio and have licensed it, and still have a couple of developers that are still using Web IDE. So they're using consumption-based pricing, and then some of the developers that are using Web IDE can continue using that, and then others are using Business Application Studio and evaluating that for their projects. I think an important thing to mention is that from a license perspective, the Business Application Studio is licensed per developer. In Web IDE, it was blocks of 5 developers. So that kind of makes it easier from that perspective. And it's also available for partners. So partners can also order the Business Application Studio through a self-service, ordering through Manage My Services. And once they have a Cloud Foundry license, they can license Business Application Studio as like an add-on service on top of that. And the pricing is per user, per developer. And also, I know that the partner organization is working on various new additions that will also include Business Application Studio as part of them.
Terrific.
Karen, question: is there any limitation on the trial environment? I mean, something that could be managed?
Yeah, so the capabilities are all available because it's important for us to share, all the capabilities that we have. But the major difference is that in the trial environment, you have 2 dev spaces, and you can activate only one at the same time. And on the production landscape, each developer gets 10 dev spaces, and they can activate 2 simultaneously. So that's the major difference. Also, the dev spaces, as you saw before, have you can start them and stop them. So the whole starting and stopping of the dev space is something that we do automatically on the trial landscape. So we stop some of the dev spaces at a certain time so that we don't have a very big load of users using it together on the trial. And in the production environment, we have a lot more capabilities to allow longer time to use your dev space. Just so once a developer is not using the dev space for a couple of hours, then we stop the dev space, and then they, once they're want to use it again, they can start.
So there's a question from the audience about how does the Business Application Studio support the handover from design to development? In the past, with Web IDE, it was possible to import SAP UI5 projects, for example, from build to speed up development. Are any of those features available now with the Business Application Studio?
So yeah, so I mean, as you know, build is being sunset. So I mean, it can be used by customers, but we did not add any capabilities in Business Application Studio to support this scenario. But I think what's nice to see is the Fiori elements part, although it's not really prototyping, but it's a way to develop applications that speeds up the development process. And makes it a lot quicker. So although it's not a prototype, but it is a way to start developing in a quicker manner that is based on various templates to help to create an application quickly, at least from a starting perspective, and then use various tools to also edit the application.
That's great. So there's been a lot of conversations here really about agility and our ability to focus on customer success. I think Christian Klein has spoken to this around the innovation principle. How does the Business Application Studio kind of support the broader missions here of innovation, agility, and integration?
So I think that as a new development environment, kind of trying to harmonize a lot of these different tools that we have in SAP, bringing it to, as we saw, turnkey solution that really can, for each one of the development scenarios in the SAP environment, you get out of the box ability that optimize for your development. That's a huge value already, both for innovation, where you know which development scenarios are available that you can extend and expand the SAP systems. Also from integration, if you are able to open 2 dev spaces and one of them develop the backend service on the other one, develop your front end and deploy it on a different environment that consume this backend service. So it also makes things much more easier to control and influence. And also from agility perspective, once you have all these capabilities, faster, all these productivity tools, you get a much faster time to value your ability to test it locally and not need to deploy it all the time to the cloud and so on in most of the scenario. It's already helping you to achieve value much faster. And it's really, I think, a big jump forward from the capabilities of our development environment to the next level. That's really helpful for the customers and partners to benefit from it.
Excellent. And I'm really curious, but Yuval, you've shown how to create a freestyle Fiori application. And you mentioned that you can also create Fiori element once. Can you show us more about it? I mean, the Fiori tools and Fiori elements. I know I'm curious.
Sure. So this is really like a new offering, which was re-implemented after hearing many feedbacks from customers on Fiori elements tools and the need to improve over there. So basically with Business Application Studio, we are now offering new set of tools that would hopefully help developers to better understand how to develop applications based on Fiori elements, and by that innovate much faster with Fiori. So let me go to the demo and go over the different tools and capabilities that are offered with the Fiori element. So I will start with sharing my screen. We'll start the same way. So create a new application from template with the wizard. And as I mentioned before, the right tile is basically for developing applications with Fiori elements. So I am selecting the Fiori element tile. And here you can see the rich offering from the different templates for developing Fiori element application. So the list report object page for V2 and V4, the work list template, the analytical list page, and also the overview page. And I will start with the list report object page template. I'm selecting the data source for connecting my application to. This time I'm using a direct URL. It is a product service, and I just need to click next, give it a name, and basically this is it. Application is being generated, and also collecting the different dependencies that it needs to run with. So this is the product list application, and with the different artifacts of the Fiori element application. This time I will run the application from the terminal access, just to show the different ways of layering the tools on top of standard tools. And you can run the application from the run configuration, as I showed it before, but also from the terminal. So let's just click on npm start. Sorry, I need to switch to the application directory. And now npm start. And this is basically running the UI5 server that is serving basically my Fiori element application. I open, so this is the entry point for the application. And here I need to select the file that I want to run the application with. So I can use the mock server to run the application with, and also the FLP sandbox to work against the backend service directly. So this is the FLP sandbox, and this is my application that I just created. And if I navigate to it, I would be able to see the application, the list report object page, V2 with the product list that I just binded application to. You can see how fast I reached this rich application view with the Fiori element offering. And now I can continue my development of the application. So one of the tools that are coming with Fiori element is the ability to view the service that I'm consuming in a graphical way. So this is my service, and I can open it with the service modeler. And here you can see the different entities that my service is exposing. So this is a large list of entities coming from the backend, and also I can choose the graphical representation of the service. You can see it's quite complex, and selecting each one of the entities, I can see the different properties of each one of the entities, and it's very handful in case you wanna bind the different views of the application to the entities, and by that you can very easily understand the service structure and the different offering from each one of the entities. On the right hand, what I opened is the page map. So this shows a graphical representation of the different pages of the application. Out of the box on the list report object page, I can see that I have the list report with navigation to the object page for viewing the specific object of the application. I can directly from here, if I need to, I can add an additional page. And by that, just create a third navigation from the second object page to the third object page. And this is very helpful when you're doing Fiori element development. Another tool that we can show is called guided development. So let's say I want to add a button to export the list of the application of the products to an Excel, and I want to add a button on the header of the list application. So I can very easily achieve that with the guided development tool. So let's open it. I'm opening the from the command palette the guided development tool. Basically, it shows the list of development activities that I can run for the specific application, which is on my workspace. So I can search for just the term Excel. And this is the guide. It shows me, okay, what you can achieve with this guide. You can add this export button to the list, and by that export the table to Excel. And this is what the code snippet would look like after you apply it. So let's apply the change. It immediately opens the change application artifact, highlighting the edited artifact of the Excel enablement. And if I would run the application again, the Excel export button here, and it's actually working. Here I have it here. So this is also very exciting productivity tools that is coming with the Fiori element that helps developer to add functionality quickly to their application. It guides you through what is being added, and by that you can also learn and do things faster as time goes by. So this is summarize my Fiori elements demo. If you have any questions for that.
Right. Thank you, Yuval, and thank you so much, Karen. I know you've been answering a lot of questions in the chat. We are getting close to the top of the hour, but we did want to kind of get some feedback from how has the tool been received, and what else could we possibly expect in the future?
Okay, so maybe I'll touch about the expected roadmap, and then Karen can elaborate more about the feedback there. So first of all, with regards to the roadmap, as I mentioned before, we're working today to add additional scenario. HANA support would be one of them. Other scenarios and capabilities are there as well. We're looking to add additional productivity tools, and also there's a kind of a pipeline of productivity tools to touch different aspects. Yuval just showed the guided development that actually kept kind of repeating activities and captured them, that you can in one click apply them to the code. There are different types of productivity tools that we want to add on top of that. And I think that also areas like some of the capabilities around no-code, low-code that can be added to the tool itself as well. I think that's different directions that we're going to. And then, Karen, I think you want to talk about the first feedback and reaction that we're getting from customers.
Yeah. So let me share a few quotes that I have Yeah, I mean, we've done like a CI, we've done some feedback from partners that we received through hands-ons that we did. There was also an Open SAP course, and we've also had lots of discussions with customers that are already using the Business Application Studio. So here are a few of the feedbacks. In general, you know, all the feedbacks are very positive, that people are happy with the fact that the Business Application Studio experience has improved. They're very happy to get a lot of tools together in one place without the overhead of installing and maintaining. They like the fact that it's faster. And the fact that they have a lot more control over the environment. Of course, not installing anything is always something that they're happy to have. And also, it helps a lot of the developers to get started a lot quicker than what they had before in Web IDE. They like the fact that it's similar to the VS Code experience. And we got a lot of feedback also on Fiori developers specifically that very much enjoy using it when comparing it to other environments that they've been using. I have here some tweet that was also, that you can also see, sorry, that you can also see that was on Twitter. And also we have developers that are developing full stack applications with the cloud application programming model, where it's very much integrated. So this is kind of the feedback that we've received. And it's important to keep in mind, you know, that the product has been available for like 6 months. This is great feedback from our perspective. We've also had additional scenarios that were recently released, so like workflow and mobile and other scenarios. So we're working with the teams that are responsible in SAP for these scenarios to get the feedback from their customers as well.
That's terrific. So thank you so much. We're reaching up to the top of the hour. We don't actually have any further questions, I believe, at the moment. I wanted to make sure that had an opportunity to thank you all. I mean, it's very interesting, very fascinating to see what's coming and to see kind of the future of our integration and development space. I wanted to take a moment to thank Nir, Yuval, Karen, all of you for giving us a roadmap of the Business Application Studio. You know, I know it's late, your hour at this time, so hey, we want to thank you again, and we hope you come back and join us for the next Fiori-side chat.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.